Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today is gonna be the first video from the series on anxiety, and I think you can see how excited I am about it because I love to read about anxiety and as well work with people who are experiencing different forms of anxiety disorders. So today is gonna be very brief introduction into why we feel anxious, what anxiety is, and also I will be telling you briefly about the different types of anxiety disorders such as health anxiety or social anxiety. So anxiety, it is a form of fear that we all experience every day. And we all need anxiety, but at the right place and at the right time. Anxiety actually prevents us from getting into trouble, or even anxiety can prevent us from getting into some sort of danger. So let's think about an example. I will just use my own example of when 2 weeks ago I've completed an assessment with someone, and since then I still haven't written the assessment letter. I still haven't completed the tasks. So having this memory actually triggers anxiety, and that then helps me to complete all the tasks, write the letters on time, so everything is completed within the framework of the service that I work for. Without having the anxiety, most likely I would delay writing the letter even more, and that will then cause me to actually get into trouble. The right level of anxiety can actually guide us to make safe and well-judged decisions. Anxiety is also part of the fight or flight response. Fight or flight response is being activated in very extreme situations when, for instance, there's a car accident or maybe when someone is being assaulted. So in those situations, the threat system is being activated and the hormone called adrenaline is being released to our bloodstream. The adrenaline then increases the blood pressure, means more blood is being pumped into our muscles and also into our internal organs, because that's when we need the most blood, the most energy when we are in a crisis situation. One of the symptoms of the fight or flight response, it is when someone becomes really pale, means all the blood is being drained from our skin, and like I said, it goes everything towards our muscles and internal organs, because if we, for instance, need to run really fast, it doesn't matter if we have enough supply of blood in our skin, but we need a lot of supply in our muscles so that our muscles they have the energy to run. Another symptom of the fight or flight response, it is people sweating a lot, because sweat allows the heat escape the body, and in situations where maybe our mind is predicting that we're gonna have to run really fast, there's gonna be a lot of heat, so to get rid of that we start already sweating. Another common response that we might encounter in situations when we anticipate the danger, it is for our senses to become sharper. So for instance, the light might become much brighter and we might start hearing the sounds as if they were much louder than what normally we would hear them. Additionally, our muscles in our legs, they're gonna become more tense, allowing us to run faster. Also our shoulders and our arms, they're gonna become more tense, allowing us to for instance, punch or fight against someone. For some people, it might be as well that they will vomit because of this extreme anxiety and stress that they are experiencing because of certain danger. And this is to do with the fact that if we vomit, we are lighter and it is easier to run. And I'm sure you heard about theories telling us that we've inherited these skills or traits from our ancestors who needed to run for their lives from huge animals, and they actually needed to have 10 muscles, or maybe they needed to vomit in order to run for their life. But in current life, day to day, we don't need to have all these extreme symptoms in our body to live, to survive. So for instance, when you have to sit in an exam, you don't need to vomit to do that. If you have to give a speech, you don't need to have tense muscles in your body. And obviously there might be some extreme situations when people, they have to actually run for their life. Maybe they need to defend themselves. And in these situations, these adaptive skills actually can protect us. But in day-to-day situations, at work or at school, we don't need to experience these really strong sensations. And if people they are experiencing them, that means that they're experiencing a healthy level of anxiety. So in a situation when, let's say, your neighbor dog is chasing you, we would expect that you will have elevated levels of adrenaline in your bloodstream, because that will allow you to run faster, and hopefully that will allow you to escape from the dog. However, some people are expecting elevated levels of anxiety throughout the day. Others, on the other hand, they will have the spikes of anxiety. So this will depend on the trigger. So they might smell something, they might meet someone, they might maybe touch something, and that will be enough for them to have the spike of anxiety. However, in between the spikes, they will actually experience fairly normal levels of anxiety. What is also problematic about elevated anxiety is that it is normally followed by frustration, anger, or even rage. And then because of that, people they tend to engage in unhelpful behaviors such as fighting with people, arguing, and some people, in order to avoid arguments or fights, they actually self-isolate. If you are experiencing this sort of physical or behavioral issues, this is not the healthy type of anxiety that we need. However, anxiety disorders are very common. It has been reported that 1 in every 3 women and 1 in every 5 men are actually experiencing some sort of anxiety disorders. About 1 in 10 suffers from panic attacks, 1 in 7 suffers from social anxiety, and 1 in 20 suffers from health anxiety. And we also know from research that people who are isolated in society, people who doesn't have the support from friends or family, these are the people who are more likely to develop anxiety disorders. So now I will give you a very brief overview of different anxiety disorders. However, I'm not going to be covering the post-traumatic stress disorder or obsessive compulsive disorder, because I already have many videos where I cover them in details. First, we have general anxiety disorder, which in short we call GAD. And this is anxiety when someone ongoingly have sense that something bad will happen. And that means that they can't enjoy anything in life, because even if there's something positive happening in their life, they will always think ahead like, oh, I have to be on guard because something bad's gonna happen. In this type of anxiety, because the alert system is always on, the person will have normally tense muscles, they will have trouble with relaxing, the blood pressure will be increased, they will have also issues with falling asleep, and they can also become easily irritated. This means that your brain constantly is overactivating your body and also your emotions. On the other hand, if you're someone who's struggling with panic disorder, you might actually throughout the day experience quite normal levels of anxiety, but you're gonna be only reactivated in those moments when you are being triggered. So it could be to do with certain smells, it could be to do with certain people, certain situations, certain things that maybe you will see on TV. And it might also happen that sometimes you actually might struggle to identify what the actual trigger was. But still, the really strong fight or flight response can be activated. Panic attacks, they come with really strong physical sensations, as we talked about them before. So some people, they might vomit, some people, they might even faint because of panic attack. And it might also happen that some people, they will experience panic attacks at night, so they will wake up to actually having a panic attack. And then we have phobias in context of different animals, different objects, or even small spaces. So here the anxiety will be triggered by the anticipation of, for instance, going into an elevator. And then as a result, that would then lead you to avoid going into certain places or avoid certain situations. And then later you might actually realize that the fear that you're feeling is not only about going into these small spaces and these certain situations, but it's also about those physical symptoms that come with high anxiety. One more thing that will come hand in hand with anxiety in those sort of situations, it is the fear that people, they will notice that you're experiencing high anxiety. And all that together, so the fear of the actual object or the fear of the small space, and then the fear of the physical symptoms, and also the fear that people that might potentially notice your anxiety will then prevent you from actually maybe going out, and you might end up actually self-isolating for a really long time. And this takes us to the social anxiety. So this is when you become hypersensitive to what people they potentially could think or say about you. In social situations, you might feel inadequate, intimidated, you might worry that you're gonna embarrass yourself. And in some situations, these fears, they can be linked to low self-esteem and low confidence. Some people, they might experience social anxiety only in situations when maybe they need to speak in public. But for some people, the social anxiety might actually be happening when they're interacting on one-to-one basis with someone. For some people, social anxiety can also come with the fear of blushing. So people, they fear that they're gonna blush, then obviously other people, they're gonna notice that, then they fear that people, they're gonna then know that they are anxious, people, they're gonna judge them. So then as a result of that, the person actually fears blushing. And obviously once the person fears that, then they blush, and that only confirms their fear. So then they are just stuck in this vicious cycle of anxiety and the physical symptom. And lastly, we have the health anxiety, which is the preoccupation with body sensations and worry about being seriously ill. So you might be someone who's hypersensitive to whatever is going on in your body. So you will focus on each and every little sensation that goes through your body, and then you will anticipate that this might potentially mean that you are seriously ill. And then as a result of that, then you will start experiencing a lot of anxiety. People who are experiencing health anxiety, they end up going to their GPs or A&Es very often, and even when they are being told that there's nothing wrong with them, there's nothing to worry about, even if there's many different tests being done, they're never 100% sure. And in fact, we never cannot be 100% sure that there's nothing wrong with us. So part of the work that we're doing with people who are experiencing health anxiety is about helping them to actually tolerate that there's something uncertain. The health anxiety doesn't give you a break. You constantly scan your body for certain symptoms, and you constantly try to seek explanations what that sensation was in your body about, and then start catastrophizing, thinking the worst case scenario. However, you also need to remember that when you start scanning for different symptoms, when you start being stressed about these different symptoms, when you start experiencing anxiety, that will then come with many physical sensations. And sometimes those physical sensations of your anxiety can actually overlap with certain sensations that you might be feeling in your body. So then it might be sometimes quite difficult or maybe even confusing to separate one from the other. So that will be it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next week when I'm gonna be talking about different causes of anxiety and also why some people are more prone to anxiety than someone else. Thank you. Bye bye.